So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to start with the main meat of today. And it gives me great pleasure today to start the day with a great friend, a great pioneer, a great businessman, a person who has shown us how public and private innovation can work, from starting Hillwood to transforming Dallas real estate, to circumventing the globe in a helicopter in 30 days, actually under 30 days. Ross even built airports. We will talk about a lot of that. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ross Perot to the stage. Such a real pleasure to have you. Please. You know, other than the official introduction that I make to Ross, and many of you may have seen him, there are a couple of things I want to share before we get started. And when Anurag, who I can see here, introduced us, we have a saying in Greece that says, "Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are." Okay. And the two of you are incredible in that you share many common traits. So in iGrow, we go around and we look at thousands of companies and thousands of entrepreneurs. But one thing I really value about you, Ross, is you're one of under a handful of people that actually shakes hands. And your word means everything. You always deliver. You are always there. You have never failed. It's a pleasure working not just with you, but seeing that in your team, with Anurag, with Darla, with everybody. I enjoy working with the team. And, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to share one story showing your ethos and character as to how humble you are. I remember we met in Dallas in your office, and he asked me, "What do you do?" And obviously I'm a pilot, so I couldn't help myself. I started talking about how I fly helicopters, and I do it very excited. And he literally sat there listening to me very attentively, very nice. Great. Only for me to find out 6 months later that he had actually circumvented the globe, but was humble enough to stay with me, appreciate me, and indulge me, and I still look forward to that flight.
Tassos, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So with that, Ross, let's start with piloting. You circumvented the world by helicopter at 23. What did that mission teach you about risk, speed, team design, and how do those lessons, do you feel, apply to today's aerospace revolution?
I think, Tassos, again, thank you for inviting me to be here. And Anurag, my great partner, Perot Jr., and we're fortunate to have Lieutenant Governor Patrick with us of the state of Texas. So this is the man that basically for 16 years has been building the foundation. Well, as I talk about economic development and growth in Dallas, it's because we've got a leader like Dan Patrick and Governor Abbott that put in place this incredible foundation for the state of Texas that's allowed us to have this economic miracle we're currently experiencing. So the helicopter trip around the world, many, many lessons learned. Number one, I was a helicopter pilot starting in 1981. In August of 82, I read about an Australian named Dick Smith who came to Dallas, came to Bell Helicopter, bought a helicopter, and announced he was going to be the first man to fly a helicopter around the world. And I was reading in the paper, and the first thing I thought was like, I can't believe someone hadn't flown a helicopter around the world by now. And number two, I can't believe this Australian is showing up in our backyard buying our Texas product to go around the world. I said, that's not right. In my world, that's what Americans do. Americans go around the world, we set these records, and I said, we ought to go beat this guy. So I talked to my father, and my father loved big ideas. Matter of fact, the bigger the idea, the more excited he got. I said, let's go beat him. And so on August 1st of 82, we thought of the idea. We took off September 1st of 82. We were done into September. So within 60 days, beginning to end, we built the team to get it done. And what's the lesson learned? Number one, big ideas are important. Make sure you're aggressive enough to actually act on that idea. But you're not going to go anywhere in life, Tassos, if you don't build a great team. And 2/3 of that trip was the team we had. We had to put people around the world in order to get us, because each country, we had to get permission to land. And each country had different rules. And each country really didn't, especially Europe was fine. You get through Europe, that was fine. You get in the Middle East, you get through those areas, it starts to get pretty hard because they really don't want helicopters to come in. And we had to get special permission to go through every country. And then the truth is, Many times there are lots of rules out there, Tassos, and we didn't have time for all those rules. And so we bent quite a few rules going around the world because we really felt like we were on a mission from God, and like those human rules didn't count. So if the weather was so bad we couldn't fly, normally, we took off out of Canada one day, and finally the controllers let us go. We were 200 feet ceiling, and we finally worked our way to the St. Lawrence River, and we said, look, if the ships can go under all the bridges and power lines, we can too. And so we went down to the deck, we flew buoy to buoy, and we flew along the shipping lines and violated every aviation rule they had in Canada. Luckily, they didn't see that we did it, but we also learned a lesson. Once we went to a new country, Tassos, the trouble didn't follow. It was a new day. So all we had to do was cross the border. Whatever we did in country A wouldn't get to country B. So we were entrepreneurial, we were aggressive, and we had a phenomenal team. And so from that point forward, everything I've been involved with, it's always been great teams that you build to accomplish these goals.
Many more stories will follow. You'll have to join us next year again. But I want to jump into AllianceTexas. Why? This is a very interesting project. It is an industrial airport, but you also have 25,000 acres of mixed-use ecosystem that has capitalized long-term growth. What are the two decisions that you took that you feel accelerated you moving, like you already did for flying, but you literally moved from idea and groundbreaking to opening in 18 months? For us in Europe, let me repeat that, in 18 months, an airport was done.
Well, number one, the best decision, we're in Texas. How about that? Because Texas had the environment to allow us to be that aggressive and get moving. And also in Texas, we have a very good, positive, optimistic spirit of public-private partnership. So the first most important move was when the FAA, our Federal Aviation Administration, came to us and said, look, you own the land where we want to build a new airport. So the public sector coming to the private sector. And then we had a reputation for helping cities grow and building roads and donating land for roads. And Michael Morris, who was running the Council of Governments at the time, he said, would you donate land for this airport? Which is a pretty big ask. And I looked at it. I did the helicopter trip around the world. I went in the Air Force. I was flying the Air Force. And in the Air Force base I was flying at was in Fort Worth, Carswell Air Force Base. And this airport's in Fort Worth. So I'm flying airplanes out of Fort Worth. I'm a real estate developer. FAA wants to build an airport. And I go, what a great project. Let's build an airport and do a big industrial park around an airport. So the first, FAA asking. And then the second is we said, okay, we'll agree to donate the land, but how long is it going to take? And they said, it's going to take 10 to 12 years. And I said, we don't have 10 to 12 years. But Tassos, go back to what we've all seen in our lives, the connection of relationships. And so here I am, fly a helicopter around the world. I had to go to the FAA to get that aircraft certified within 30 days. Tex Malusian ran the Southwest region of the FAA. Tex is a helicopter pilot, loved the idea. His team quickly certified the modifications we made. Fast forward, who do I go to? The FAA, Tex Malusian. I said, Tex, we want to do the airport. So we had a relationship. We already had a successful partnership. And so I said, Tex, we want to do this. I said, how do we speed this up? We don't have 10 to 12 years. If we're going to give you the land, we've got to move. I said, what can the private sector do to help you? So we did all the environmental work, all the engineering work, and we had a wonderful team, and we worked every week with the FAA. We met every Friday. I said, look, we will spend private money to do what you will do normally in public life. We'll use the consultants that you use. So we will tell you everybody we pick, so you know they're certified, so to speak. And so we fast forwarded the whole program, got it done in 8 months, but also go back to great state leadership, Governor Clements. And we briefed Governor Clements on the project, so we had full state support. Gib Lewis, Speaker of the House, full support out of Speaker Lewis. And then Speaker Jim Wright of the U.S. House, we were in his district, Speaker Wright. So we had another critical lesson learned is the alignment of politics. And we kept every political, and we had a very strong mayor in Fort Worth. So we worked very closely with the local mayor, state rep, our U.S. representatives. You line that team up. We had a common vision, and that's why it happened so quickly. And Alliance today is now one of the top 20 cargo airports in the world. We have over 600 companies there today. We have 70,000 people go to work at Alliance every day. We've added 4,000 manufacturing jobs in the past 9 months at Alliance. And so it's become a really economic powerhouse. And you add up all the companies, we're the largest taxpayer in Fort Worth, largest employer in Fort Worth, and we're only half done, Tassos. And we keep buying land, so it's going to get bigger.
And Ross,
and we've got Governor Patrick Lowe's. Governor Patrick has been a huge supporter. A lot of these big deals we brought in, what's great about Governor Patrick is we can bring in a major client, even in the middle of session. And he's got everybody in the world working on him because our lieutenant governor is the most powerful person in the state. Everybody's there. I said, Governor, we've got an important client coming in, and he will meet with the clients at any time to get these deals done. And that makes this state so unique. And why is Texas growing so quickly? It's that tone at the top. So it's this massive partnership we put together, Tassos, and getting along with people and building relationships. Those are the key lessons learned.
Ross, we are also blessed in Monaco to have with us today our Minister of Finance, who also is very broad-minded. And I remember we were having dinner when he was first coming into Monaco, and he said something that stuck with me. He's like, people have this tendency of saying, everything is working, don't touch it. Well, everything is not working, and we're going to make it work, and we're going to make it better. So let me ask you, and jumping from what you said before, if a minister now or a mayor came and asked you, how can the alliance model be replicated to reshore manufacturing and modernize supply chains? What would you suggest to them? You've hinted on a few things, but how would you do that?
For every community is different, and you've got to look at your community, look at your team, look at your companies. And the most important thing a mayor or a minister can do is always take care of your existing business. We all want to go chase the new deal. We want to chase the new client coming in. And we've got some phenomenal firms moving into this state. But take care of your local companies because that's where your growth is going to come from. Stay close to the local business, number one. And then, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where do you have advantages? We develop parts of Alliance all across the United States. We develop old Air Force bases and turn them into industrial parks. We take speedways and convert them over. We build new airports. We've actually closed airports. We've had a city say, well, you close the airport and turn it into a big logistics park, and we've done that. And so these public-private partnerships, the number one goal, what does the community need? What's the community want? We can give them vision and ideas, but each community is going to know what they need. And so the big one now, Tassos, maybe we'll get into is AI.
Yeah.
The AI revolution, and Texas now leads the country in hyperscalers for AI. Again, tone at the top, very aggressive tax program for AI to bring them in. And the other thing that you're seeing is demand for energy. We've heard about AI here at Davos, demand for electricity. Why is Texas winning? We have 160 years of natural gas in our state. So these big hyperscalers are coming in, their own gas turbines, they've got their own power. That's why we're winning the hyperscaler AI battle for Texas, which is a huge economic, the taxes alone are phenomenal, what we're able to do. And it is the future of manufacturing, it's information manufacturing.
And Ross, in your career, you've seen many moonshots, you've seen misfires. What is one lesson from a tough investment that you've made that now shapes how you evaluate founders or technologies?
I think what's good about our state is, the reason we're so entrepreneurial, is that if you fail, you're not punished. And so what Anurag and I do, we go out and look for these great, we love pre-seed, angel, early. And we've got about, I think, 80-something firms we back right now. And we love the young entrepreneur with the big idea and the big passion. And so what I look for is really is commitment. Do you have commitment? And then you need a little bit of experience, and we can add experience around that great entrepreneur. So that's what we look for. Now that model, a lot of losses. But it's a small bet. You help a young entrepreneur. And my theory is if we help a young entrepreneur earlier in their life on their first firm, if it doesn't work, the odds are very high on the second firm that they're going to come see us. And we'll help them on that. Boy, the second and the third, that's the one that could really work. People forget Stephen Jobs was fired from Apple. Round one, he's fired from Apple, started Next Computer, and we were his first investor in Next Computer. And we helped Steve get launched Next. Apple then buys Next, and then the famous Steve Jobs we know took off. So even the great entrepreneurs like a Steve can have a stumble.
And Ross, you now are a member of the board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You push pro-growth policies. What policy shift do you think would most unlock private capital going into infrastructure?
I think, so I'm chairman of the United States Chamber. It's the largest business group in the world, and we've already agreed to have a business delegation with Monaco. So it'd be tough to get, I mean, I can't imagine how many companies are going to sign up to come to Monaco. It would be a very popular spot. And I think I'm going to link up with the Monaco ambassador in Washington.
Fantastic.
And get close to him. So I think 3% growth is the goal of the United States Chamber. And we work with our administration every day, Commerce Department, Treasury, to maintain 3% growth. In the United States, if we can grow at 3%, then we've done our duty as American businessmen and women for this country. Now, our politicians have to contain the spending, but we will deliver the revenue at 3% growth, and so that's the number one goal. And so what can really unlock it? And so our tax code this year that the President Trump passed is a huge pro-growth tax code. And you're seeing it now across the nation with a huge amount of capital expenditure to take advantage of that. And President Trump's reshoring initiative, bringing industry back into America, it's stunning, and we've seen it in our business. Companies coming, we had a company that came in, we build warehouses, logistics parks. It's not exciting, it's not sexy, and I've never had clients fight over a building, but we had 1 million square feet, and the client goes, I have to have that building. I go, well, it's already, we just made a deal, we think it's leased. He goes, no, break the lease, I have to have that building. And so we talked to the client, we moved this client away, so okay, we've got the building for you, but we'll lease it to you. He said, no, I have to buy it. And I go, we don't really sell buildings at Alliance, we keep the buildings. He said, no, I'm going to put $750 million into this building. I have to own the building. I said, well, we're going to lease it to you for a year because of some tax issues. He goes, I'll pay the taxes. Wow. I've never seen a client this aggressive. I said, why do you need this building? He said, my chairman promised President Trump we were going to put $5 billion in America, and this will be the first billion, and we have to get it done. So this is the level of activity you see on the front lines of client companies and countries. So the South Koreans have been in, the Japanese have been in, all these countries that have made commitments. We as entrepreneurs are out in front of that, and we're encouraging our chamber members, get out in front of that wave, because trillions of dollars are coming into America because of the leadership of President Trump, and get out there. We need deregulation. We've got to really continue to push deregulation in the state and permitting reform in our country. If you look at how quickly we can get things done in Texas with the leadership we have, the rest of the nation can't move like Texas can. And so we need this nation. So that's the next big issue at the chamber is permitting reform, regulation reform, and because the problem with the AI revolution now in many states, they can't get the permits to build the power or the power lines. In Texas, we're doing it, but the rest of the country needs to do it too. So that's the answer.
So Ross, I want to pivot as I bring this discussion to a close, because you and I can keep talking and there's so many topics we can go through. But let's pivot a little bit and talk about the Air Force Memorial in DC. It's a project. You were involved for 14 years. When I look at what we do in iArtist, we're looking to help young artists and help them make a living and promote them. What drove you? What was the driving force behind you getting so involved and making sure that this was something that happens?
Well, as a real estate developer, and an Air Force pilot. I think that I kind of joke the only developer they could find who's an Air Force guy was me. And so the Air Force committee asked me to become chairman of the Air Force Memorial. And so I said, how long is it going to take? They go 4 years. 14 years later, we open. And now I hit the deep state. I hit deep bureaucracy, deep regulation, and we followed all procedures. We had the best architects, big competitions. We picked Ian Pay's firm to come in and be our architect, and we got it all done. And then we were going to build right next to the Marine Corps Memorial, and at the Iwo Jima Memorial, and we had it all approved. Then the Marine Corps didn't like it. The retired Marine Corps started suing the Air Force because we built too close, and so it was a weird fight. The Marines and the Air Force shouldn't fight. And what's amazing is I started working Capitol Hill, I started going to our friends in Congress. And they said, Ross, and then the Marines are going to change the law. They're going to go to Congress, get a law passed. And I'm working Congress, and they said, Ross, don't worry. It is so easy to kill legislation. It's never going to happen. And so the Marines couldn't get law passed. They couldn't. Then we beat them in court. And Ben Ginsburg was our attorney. And Ben Ginsburg is the attorney for Bush that won the recount in Florida. So we had a pretty good attorney. And we stopped them there. And so basically we had a huge fight. And so the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the Chief of the Air Force called me to their office. And they said, look, there's got to be a way we can work this out. And Congress is getting upset that the services were fighting. And I said, look, if you want us to move, they said, would you move it? I said, we'll move. But this is where real estate development, really, that my experience had some help. I said, okay, we don't have another 8 years to go through approvals, entitlements, and bureaucracy. If you want us to move, you've got to pass a law that we are free to build our memorial. Well, they passed such a powerful law that they gave the Air Force Memorial, the approval of the Air Force Memorial went to the Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld. And Rumsfeld didn't have time. He gave it to the Secretary of the Air Force, Secretary Wynn. And so I worked with General Mosley and Secretary Wynn. I worked with IMPA's Jim Freed, IMPA's lead partner. We had the whole thing redesigned. And the first memorial was 40 feet high. That's as high as they let us go. Well, now the second memorial, because we didn't have any planning authority around us, Jim said, how high can we go? I said, Jim, go as high as you can possibly go. We went 270 feet high. We went right to the ceiling of what National Airport would let us do. So now you've got the only memorial that truly penetrates the skyline of Washington. And so we got, because of that, we had the law, we got it approved, we got it built, and it's probably the most unique memorial you'll see in Washington today, and one that will not be duplicated because of the height. And now all the planning groups said, well, that'll never happen again. But we got it through, and we opened it with President Bush, and President Bush was an Air Force pilot, so he's the perfect president to dedicate the Air Force Memorial. So
Ross?
Same thing, teamwork, partnership, politics, be creative, be aggressive, and then ask for the moon, so to speak, and they gave it to us, and so that's how we got it.
Ross, it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Tassos, thank you.
I keep learning every time, and I look forward to welcoming you next year.
Thank you for our friendship.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Seriously,
Perfect.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Let's take a quick picture.
Okay.